This is
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
The Fifth Element wasn't just a sci-fi movie, it was chaos in couture. A film that dropped a flying taxi into a neon war zone and made opera sound like the future. But behind the wild costumes and cosmic noise, nothing was easy. The script took decades to finish. The villain and the hero, they never shared a scene. And the man originally meant to play Ruby Road, he refused to wear the wig. These are 20 weird facts about The Fifth Element, and buried in the mayhem, a diva costume that fit Luc Besson's wife, just as he fell for someone else. Call for multipass. This ship doesn't slow down for logic. Number 1. Long before the flying cars and laser battles, there was just a boy, alone in a small village in France. Luc Besson didn't grow up surrounded by art. He didn't have movie parents or big dreams of Hollywood. He had isolation and imagination. At 16, he started writing what would eventually become The Fifth Element. Back then, it wasn't a film idea. It was a place to hide, a universe he could escape into. He created Lilu, Zorg, the Mondo Showans, worlds within worlds, stories that made sense when nothing else around him did. It took more than 20 years, but that teenager's escape became one of the most expensive sci-fi films ever made. And beneath all the visual madness was still that lonely kid writing his way out. Number 2. Luc Besson didn't just write a movie, he wrote a universe. The first draft of The Fifth Element wasn't a screenplay. It was a galaxy-spanning epic over 400 pages long. Back then, it wasn't meant to be one film. It was a trilogy, 3 full stories, multiple planets, dozens of alien species with full languages, histories, and power struggles. There were political subplots involving galactic councils, entire civilizations that never made it past the page, characters with rich backstories cut down to background extras. It was wild, messy, way too long, but also brilliant. Besson spent years world building, layer by layer, sketching the cities, naming species, mapping entire alien religions just to explain a single prop. But when it came time to film, the studios pushed back. Too weird, too big, too risky. So he did the unthinkable. He cut it all down to a single film, a leaner version, still packed with color and chaos, but just one sliver of what he had planned. What we saw in theaters, that was just the center slice of a much bigger universe. The rest, still locked in notebooks, or orbiting somewhere in Besson's mind, waiting for a return trip. Number 3. Even with a script in hand, the future wasn't locked, because Corbin Dallas almost had a very different face. Before Bruce Willis signed on, the studio had a plan B, Mel Gibson. He was coming off Braveheart, a global star with box office muscle. But Besson hesitated. Gibson's energy didn't fit. Too brooding, too grounded. He wanted someone who could handle chaos, but still crack a smile in the middle of it. Willis said yes, and everything changed. Corbin Dallas became more than a soldier. He became a reluctant hero with dry wit, bad luck, and a cab full of destiny. With Gibson, it would have been darker, cooler, less fun. But with Bruce, it flew.
Come on, give me the cash.
Is that a Z140? New charge assault model.
Yeah?
Good thing for me it's not loaded.
Give
To push that little yellow button to load it.
me the cash!
Number 4. Gary Oldman didn't audition. He didn't chase the role. He barely even read the script. He did it as a favor. A few years earlier, Luc Besson had produced Oldman's passion project, Nil by Mouth. So when Besson called him up for The Fifth Element, Oldman said yes without hesitation. But privately, he didn't get it. He later admitted he had no idea what the story was about. Still, he showed up in a plastic half-helmet, channeling Texas oil barons and cartoon villains, and gave one of the most bizarre, unforgettable sci-fi performances of the 90s. He hated the movie, but fans, they loved every second of him. Number 5. The search was massive. Over 8,000 actresses auditioned. Some were established, some were rising stars. Elizabeth Berkley, fresh off Showgirls, was among them. She gave a bold reading. Others came in with sci-fi swagger, strong accents, practiced alien grace, but none of them felt new. Then Mila Jovovich walked in. She didn't speak loudly, didn't try to own the room, but Luc Besson said it hit him instantly. She didn't seem like she was from anywhere. Not France, not America, not Earth. She looked like she belonged to the future. And as soon as she spoke, he knew she was Lilu. Not because she was polished, because she was pure. They wanted someone who felt alien without trying, and Mila was that feeling. So out of 8,000 women, famous or not, they chose the one who felt like a mystery. She didn't just wear the orange straps, she made them iconic. Because The Fifth Element didn't need fame, it needed presence. Number 6. On screen, she held the key to the universe. Off screen, her own world was quietly coming undone. The alien diva who takes the stage halfway through The Fifth Element wasn't just a voice. She was Luc Besson's wife. Her name was Maïwenn, a French actress and director in her own right. Tall, striking, hidden under layers of blue makeup and foam, Besson cast her as the diva Plavalaguna, a mysterious, otherworldly figure whose voice literally unlocks the power to save the universe. On screen, she stunned the crew. That movement, that silence, that voice. But behind the scenes, something else was happening. As Besson directed the film, he started falling for someone else, Milla Jovovich. She was half Maïwenn's age, new to the industry, and completely transformative as Lilu. The connection between Besson and Milla started small. Shared language lessons, long days on set, late-night script notes. But it grew fast. Too fast. By the time filming wrapped, Besson had quietly separated from Maïwenn and was openly with Milla. No public scandal, just a private orbit shift. The woman who played the key to saving the world watched from backstage as her husband drifted toward a different kind of Fifth Element. In the final cut, you can feel it. Two women, both luminous, both unforgettable, each carrying a different kind of heartbreak. Number 7. Lilu didn't just speak with her eyes. She had her own language. Luc Besson invented the divine language while writing the script, a fully constructed alien tongue with over 400 unique words. He and Milla worked on it together, refined it, practiced it, played with it, and as their off-screen relationship deepened, they started using it for something else. Love letters, private notes, words that no one else on set could read. It became their secret code, spoken between scenes, scribbled on paper. The romance didn't last, but the language did. And in the film, every syllable Milla speaks, it's not gibberish. It's fluent, practiced, and deeply personal. Alien on screen, intimate in real life. Number 8. Lilu wasn't just a savior. She was a whirlwind of raw power, a blur of fists and feet that defied gravity, and much of that on-screen ferocity came directly from Milla Jovovich herself. While many actors rely heavily on stunt doubles, Milla was determined to embody Lilu's every explosive movement. She trained relentlessly, learning fight choreography, wire work, and fast-paced combat with precision. Her dedication transformed her into a genuine action hero. Think of the iconic corridor fight scene. Lilu, unleashed, taking down multiple armed guards with breathtaking agility. That wasn't CGI. And in that scene, it wasn't a stunt double in a wig. It was Milla herself, contorting her body, throwing precise kicks, and enduring grueling takes. Her commitment pushed the boundaries of what was expected. Risking bruises and bumps, she performed countless high-energy sequences. Because for the Fifth Element to truly feel real, its ultimate weapon had to bleed, fight, and fall with authentic human grit. Number 9. It wasn't just sci-fi nonsense. That insane all-in-one superweapon Zorg carries? It actually worked. At least, the flamethrower did. The prop department built a fully functional version of the gun, complete with working flame jets. And when they tested it, it nearly torched the entire set. One blast went too high. The flames licked across the ceiling. Crew members scrambled. Extinguishers came out. No one was hurt, but the message was clear. This movie was not playing it safe. Even the weapons were dangerous, and that's exactly how Besson liked it. Number 10. They weren't slow because of character design. They were slow because they were melting. The Mondoshawan aliens in the opening sequence wore 80-pound suits, thick foam, minimal ventilation, no cooling systems. They shuffled slowly through ancient corridors, not for dramatic effect, but because the actors inside were on the verge of overheating. One performer collapsed from heat exhaustion, had to be pulled out of the costume mid-scene, rehydrated, stabilized. They finished the shoot, but just barely. What looked like elegant alien choreography was actually survival, one heavy step at a time.
Kobe, my man. I have no fire. I said, you have any matches? I have no matches. I saw smoke in it. If I knew, Father, you smoke?
Number 11. Ruby Road wasn't subtle. Leopard print, glittering mic, screams that could stop time. But the most outrageous part wasn't the performance. It was the costume. Jean-Paul Gaultier designed it to be tight, loud, and completely impractical. It weighed 50 pounds, had a rigid spine, and offered zero flexibility. Chris Tucker couldn't sit, couldn't lean forward, could barely breathe. So between takes, he didn't rest in a chair. He leaned against walls, stood in corners, sweated through entire shooting days without relief, but you'd never know it. On screen, he's chaos incarnate, bouncing, screeching, stealing scenes with every breath. Because sometimes the loudest voice in the galaxy comes from someone who can't even sit down. Number 12. Most films fake it. Quick cuts, CGI, camera tricks, not the fifth element. When the Divas concert hall gets blown to pieces, that wasn't miniature models or green screen. It was a full-scale detonation, done live, inside a real structure. At the time, it was the largest indoor explosion ever captured on film. A calculated risk, one shot, no resets. They had dozens of cameras, walls rigged to collapse, and fire marshals standing by. Everything had to work perfectly, or the scene was lost forever. And when it went off, it was flawless, chaotic, dangerous. A literal blast that became a visual legend. In a movie full of wild ideas, this one truly went up in flames.
We need to find the leader. Mangalores won't fight without the leader.
Send someone to negotiate.
Anybody else want to negotiate?
Where did he learn to negotiate like that?
I wonder.
Number 13. Hero, villain, two icons, and they never meet. Not once, not even by accident. Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman, Corbin Dallas and Zorg exist in the same story but never face each other. Not because of scheduling, because of choice. Luc Besson designed it that way. He wanted the villain and hero to fight through ripple effects, not through direct confrontation. Their paths orbit each other, interfere, but never collide. It's rare, risky, and weirdly effective. The tension builds anyway, and somehow the story works without the traditional showdown. Because sometimes the most powerful enemy is the one who never even sees you coming. Number 14. Most sci-fi lives in the shadows. Dark ships, metal corridors, moody lighting. Luc Besson wanted none of that. He said the future didn't have to be cold. It could be loud, chaotic, alive. So instead of murky interiors, he lit most action scenes in full daylight. Taxi chases under a blue sky, gunfights in sterile white corridors, orange explosions over golden clouds. It was a massive risk, exposing every detail, every costume, every effect to full light. But that was the point. He wanted you to see the future, not squint at it. And in doing so, he broke one of sci-fi's oldest rules. He didn't make it dark, he made it shine.
You got a message.
Yeah.
Not gonna open it, could be important.
First one was from my wife, telling me she's leaving. Second was from my lawyer, telling me he was leaving with my wife.
I bet your lunch. Come on. You are fired.
Number 15. Before the leopard print, before the screams, before Chris Tucker stole the movie in a cloud of glitter and chaos, the role of Ruby Road belonged to someone else. Prince. Luc Besson wanted him from the beginning. The voice, the energy, the untouchable gender-bending swagger. Prince was intrigued. He agreed to a meeting. He liked the script. He said yes. Then, he saw the costumes. Jean-Paul Gaultier had designed an entire wardrobe for Ruby. Lace, mesh, plunging necklines, and high-arched heels. Fabrics that clung. Colors that screamed louder than the character. And somehow, Prince said no. Too feminine, he thought. Too extreme, even for him. He backed out. So Besson turned to Chris Tucker. A completely different energy. Younger, faster, more frantic than sultry. Tucker took the part and ran with it. He channeled Michael Jackson's moves with Prince's style and turned Ruby Road into a high-speed scream machine. But deep down, you can still feel what almost happened. Because Ruby wasn't written for Tucker. He was written for royalty. And somewhere out there, in a parallel dimension of cinema, Prince is still holding the mic. Number 16. It was supposed to be Besson's masterpiece, France's biggest budget movie ever, a wild fusion of sci-fi, fashion, opera, and chaos. And when it premiered at Cannes, people booed. Critics said it was nonsense, silly, shallow, too loud. But something strange happened. Audiences, especially young ones, loved it. They didn't care if it made sense. They quoted Ruby Road. They obsessed over Lilu's hair. They rewound the Divas opera scene over and over again. The reviews faded, but the fandom grew louder every year. And now, The Fifth Element is a cult classic. Not in spite of its weirdness, because of it. What Cannes rejected, the world embraced. Number 17. Most movies dress their characters. The Fifth Element dressed the entire galaxy. Luc Besson didn't want traditional sci-fi gear. He didn't want sterile uniforms or recycled space armor. He wanted fashion that told a story. So he called in a legend, Jean-Paul Gaultier. The French couture icon didn't just design a few standout pieces. He built over 1,000 costumes by hand. Every alien race had its own aesthetic code, its own silhouettes, its own fabrics, its own rules. The Mondoshawan were armored and ancient, wrapped like priests in pyramids. The Mangalores were snarling mercenaries, all metal, grit, and chaos. Even background characters, people who passed through a shot for 2 seconds, were fully costumed in one-of-a-kind pieces. Taxis had drivers in reflective streetwear. Flight attendants wore skin-tight neoprene corsets. Security guards looked like nightclub bouncers from another planet. It wasn't just fashion, it was world-building, stitched into every seam. Because in The Fifth Element, you didn't need exposition, you just needed to look. And what you saw was a universe dressed to kill. Number 18. The giant ships in the opening scene weren't just science fiction, they were mythic. Luc Besson wanted ancient roots under futuristic designs, so the Mondoshawan ships were built using Egyptian geometry. Rounded tops, thick bases, shapes pulled from temple carvings and sun worship. The idea? That maybe aliens didn't just build the pyramids, maybe they were the pyramids. The film tied spiritual mythology to sci-fi spectacle, bridging past and future with silent symbols. Because in The Fifth Element, even the spaceships had secrets. Number 19. It looked like CGI, but it wasn't, at least not entirely. Those massive cityscapes with flying cars zipping through neon towers, they started with miniature models, dozens of them, hand-built skyscrapers, tiny traffic lanes, layered lighting for depth. They filmed them with motion control cameras, just like in the original Star Wars, then added digital effects to bring them to life. The blend was seamless, real enough to touch, unreal enough to dream about. In a film obsessed with texture and chaos, the future was still built by hand. Number 20. It was a French production, funded by French studios, directed by a French visionary. And yet, The Fifth Element was filmed entirely in English, not for style, for survival. Luc Besson knew that to make a film this weird, this colorful, this expensive, he needed the world to see it. So he cast American stars, hired British crews, shot the whole thing at Pinewood Studios in London. At the time, it was the most expensive film France had ever produced. But to get global reach, it had to speak in the language of blockbusters. And somehow, it worked. Bonus fact. It wasn't meant to be a catchphrase, just a throwaway line.
Multipass.
Lilu says it over and over, mispronounced, broken English, but full of purpose. And somehow, it stuck. Audiences started quoting it, mimicking it, turning it into memes before memes even existed. Today, the word shows up in video games like Borderlands, Cyberpunk 2077, and dozens more. Not as a plot device, but as a tribute, a digital wink to one of sci-fi's weirdest cult classics. One word, said 5 different ways, and still unforgettable, because sometimes all it takes is a multipass. It was too loud, too strange, too bright, too French. Critics didn't know what to do with The Fifth Element, but fans did. They clung to the chaos, memorized the lines, fell in love with a movie that felt like it was made on a dare, and somehow came out beautiful. Luc Besson started writing it at 16, but it never really stopped growing. Now it lives on in conventions, video games, fan tattoos, and fluorescent fever dreams. A sci-fi cult film built not on perfection, but on imagination that refused to stay quiet. If this one still lives rent-free in your mind, drop a comment. Tell us what wild, legendary film we should dive into next. Because in a world full of rules, The Fifth Element didn't follow any. It just lit a match and let it burn.